And a lot of the ideas for drifting came from, ideas that kind of kept us up at night going, So like people like Stefan Papadakis, if you know who that is.
I do.
How can we get the rear brakes so that you can lock up the rear brakes to initiate drift?
Right.
And we had some different OE calipers with 2 different piston sizes. So when you depress your foot on the brake pedal, it uses the little piston, so it only has so much clamping force. But then if you did another foot brake or a hand brake, it had a bigger piston.
Sure.
Kind of called each other and said, well, what if we just put another set of calipers on the back of the axle? And now everybody does that, right? You have to have a separate circuit for those cars.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool because I'll take those same ideas and put it into an autocross car now, or put it into off-road applications.
Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories.
Welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions without Jeff Smith. Again, Jeff will be back soon. He's not snow farming anyway. So that was the winter discussion.
Snow farming.
Yeah, snow farming. Yes,
because
he was good at
boatload of money.
Yeah,
in
absolutely. Sponsored by ARP Bolts. Go to arp-bolts.com for every need in bolts, fasteners of any other
any ilk.
Yeah,
Sir.
you can even at the restaurant.
And you can.
What's their restaurant?
It is called Hosie's.
Hosie's.
It's in Santa Paula, California.
Yes.
And if you could get there, you will be extremely
very
pleased.
nice restaurant.
Super yummy.
That's right.
Little did you know that you can get exotic titanium hardware and a fresh Reuben. So,
Wow.
There you go. There you go. So I am joined by Steve Strope,
some guy,
man about town. I was going to use that, but I can't use that anymore. Anyway,
yeah.
But to introduce Mike,
I build cars, and I know him for some reason.
Awesome cars. He's amazing
Like
because
3 of them.
One of the best car builders in the country.
I am.
That's proven.
Really?
Yes. Absolutely. The best guy in
Glad you read that exactly how I wrote it.
Anaphylactic shock, New York. Isn't that where you're from?
I'm from Appalachian, New York.
Pretty close.
Which is just as remote as wherever you're talking about.
And our guest today, we are lucky enough to have our guest from Wilwood Brakes, Mike Hamrick.
There he is.
Mike is he knows all and sees all at Wilwood. He is involved with both marketing and sales. Been there a long time. How many years you been at Wilwood?
Last week it was 21 years.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
21 years.
So it would be safe to say you're also involved with product engineering, developing, or idea. Maybe you're not sitting there with the blueprints and creating a part, but are you part of development? Like an R&D?
A lot of that.
A lot of R&D? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, a lot of the markets that we start talking about, I kind of say, hey, they want to do this, or these customers are looking for this, or we really should kind of move this product over to here because it would work over here.
And I think right off the bat, because the guys who are guys and gals and alien, I don't know what else you are, but watching this, it's probably a safe bet that they're into muscle cars, hot rods, of some kind of ilk like that. And they're going to know Wilwood because of that, and especially because of the gift that keeps on giving for you guys, I'm sure, pro touring, and that ilk, because it focused on suspension and handling and braking. But beyond that, Wilwood does a whole ton of stuff that has nothing to do with muscle cars or street rods. I'm sure if you've been there, like you said, we'll have to check our sources.
Check my LinkedIn.
Right. Yes.
Check my LinkedIn.
Your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. If you've been around with product design or bringing things to light, I'm sure you were in there when they were like, hey, this power sports thing is taking off. These ATV things are taking off. Hey, going backdated, hey, this custom chopper motorcycle thing is taking off. We should be, they have brakes on them, and they're a performance industry of their own. So
Absolutely.
were you there at that gestation period when those different forms of our hobby were coming up? Hey, we should look at making brakes for these things.
Let me tell you that I was back when we were barely doing any hot rod stuff.
It was just
That's when
race
I
cars, roundy round cars.
Yeah, so when I started at Wilwood, I took over the position from a gentleman that was kind of doing like what we classify as hot rod So that wasn't muscle cars. It was a little bit here and there. Sure. But it was kind of like drag racing and hot rods mixed together. And we had some customers that did hot rod stuff like heights,
Sure.
TCI, total cost involved. And these guys would buy like our little 11-inch Dynalite brake kits, and they'd put them on open wheel 32 frames and 37, type chassis, that kind of stuff with a 9-inch out back. And the 9 inches came from people like Curry
Sure.
that weren't manufacturing like they are now.
Right.
They were literally finding old 9 inches and cutting them
R
down
and
to
R
what
and
you
them,
wanted.
yep.
Right. So
So with this situation, is that still a big piece of your business? I mean, is that heights, TCI, all that? Is that still, you work with Roadster Shop and those guys, that kind of thing?
yeah, so it's grown
Yeah, I would
tremendously.
bet. Okay.
But when I started, it was like, here's 430 customers and start calling them. That's not how it is anymore.
No.
Now it's honestly turned into a lot of people vetting us out saying, hey, we want to start carrying your product. All the way from import. I mean, we sell so many Honda brake kits, I can't believe it. And I'm a Honda guy. So it's like, I've always been the Honda guy. And I've always been the guy that said, hey, try this new brake kit on your little Honda. I'd put it on there and I'd try it and give them feedback and put some different pads in it.
We're talking like Civics and such? Is that what you're
Civics,
Yeah.
Preludes.
kind of that whole mixture of the more affordable car.
Okay.
Right? But now we do S2000s, a lot of stuff, and all the way from a street car to a full-blown road race brake kit for that same car.
Wow.
And that's kind of how we've also turned the company is it went from we were a hardcore racing company.
Yeah.
When I started, we were just getting out of NASCAR.
NASCAR. Yeah.
And I mean, when I say getting out of NASCAR, I'm a huge Jeff Gordon fan, and don't hold that against me because he's awesome still.
Yes.
But he won 3 of his 4 championships on Wilwood. So, I mean, like, Wilwood was a staple name with Hendrick Motorsports back there.
Sure.
So, as we started weaning off that, we started doing a lot more OEM product stuff. I mean, even today, when you're driving out the 10 freeway out in, like, Palm Springs and you see the big windmills, we have brakes on those.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
A lot of agricultural stuff. Probably just like ARP. They probably sell nuts and bolts to things you just go, I didn't even think that they would sell a nut and bolt to.
Okay, now you got me confused, which isn't hard to do. So is it a caliber type brake system on those units?
So a lot of they have a couple
obviously
different ones,
massive.
but a lot of them are just air actuated to keep a constant
Friction.
velocity of
Okay.
the fan.
Sure.
So it's
So
a
it doesn't go.
huge,
So it doesn't spin too fast.
too fast.
Okay.
That should go through brake pads.
Oh, absolutely. If you go to Epcot Center and you ride around on the Epcot racers, those are all Wilwood calipers and pads.
How
Really.
cool is that? Interesting. So diversification into other entities makes good sense for any business. But yeah, that's amazing. So Wilwood at its infancy was purely a racing company?
Just purely racing.
Okay.
It really started with circle track and drag racing.
How far back are we going?
Oh, like when Art Morrison was huge in drag racing.
Okay.
That's when Wilwood was huge in drag racing.
I got it.
So
Okay.
when Art Morrison was selling chassis for drag cars and back halves, I mean, that's all he sold was Wilwood product to go on that.
Right.
And some of those SKU numbers, if I showed you the number, you'd go, wait a minute, you still sell that same part number
Right.
from 35 years ago? It's crazy.
Wow.
Sure.
Right? It's changed. It's morphed into much better products, a forged hat instead of a casted hat, better materials. But ultimately, a lot of the marketplaces that we deal with, they haven't really changed. It's just we've gotten better at doing it. And I want to say also that we've got a lot of people that are specific to a marketplace that have made us really get into different facets really, really tight. So we have
The focused effort.
the focus of it. So we have people that focus on nothing but a market. So like we have a guy that's in southern Indiana and he does nothing but dirt circle track. That's it.
Sure.
And if you know what that car is, the funky looking one.
Oh, I'm familiar.
It's amazing. I mean, we're
Right.
probably on 3/4 of the cars when you go to a.
So you have that much penetration. Wow,
Oh, yeah.
that's impressive. That's impressive. Obviously, it's working.
And then as far as what we do in the street market, it kind of trickles down into like drifting. I was fortunate to be one of the guys that really started, gosh, it's 20 years ago, with the whole drift and formula drift. And to this day, we're probably on half the cars that are competing in formula
In
drift.
drifting. Okay.
And a lot of the ideas for drifting came from, ideas that kind of kept us up at night going, So like people like Stefan Papadakis, if you know who that is.
I do.
He's kind of a big deal,
Yeah,
right?
you bet.
Well, back when he started getting into Formula Drift, we worked a lot together and we were trying to figure out how can we get the rear brakes so that you can lock up the rear brakes to initiate drift.
Right.
And we had some different OE calipers with 2 different piston sizes. So when you depress your foot on the brake pedal, it uses the little piston, so it only has so much clamping force. But then if you did another foot brake or a hand brake, it had a bigger piston.
Sure.
Well, I remember there was one week where he and I just went back and forth going, what should we do? And almost like a light switch, we both kind of called each other and said, well, what if we just put another set of calipers on the back of the axle? And now everybody does that, right?
So-
You have to have a separate circuit for those cars.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool because I'll take those same ideas and put it into an autocross car now, or put it into off-road applications. If you watch like all of Robbie Gordon's SST trucks, have you ever seen those? Mm-hmm. So those are Wilwood from head to toe, all of
Really?
it.
Okay.
Worked with Robbie to get all those
Yeah.
brakes on those trucks. And
Another guy that's kind of a big deal.
right? So, and we're doing even stuff with him right now for his
Awesome.
speed UTV stuff. So with that, he said, hey, how can we get it so that we can have a handbrake? And I said, well, we've got these products. We can put these in line and you make your own handbrake.
Right.
Now, every time you're watching those inboard cameras,
He's
those
pulling.
guys are jacking on those handbrakes. And that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So pretty cool.
And you're a pretty hands-on guy. I mean, how many weeks in a year are you on the road? Is it a lot now, or is it? It was a lot at one time.
There's been years where I've been on the road for like a
full year.
minimum of 26 weekends.
Yeah, it's a bunch.
But I've started to kind of lean back on that, and then also cultivate some of our younger guys.
Sure,
that
makes
want to
sense.
go on the road and do this.
Right. Right.
Get them more vested in it. And like our Formula Drift guys, I used to be that guy. I'm not that guy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I help them and I say, hey, who's hot and who's not, and I'll help
Right.
you work with them. But as far as going and doing Formula Drift, I've got a team that goes out and does it, and they know those guys. So
That's
it's
good.
kind of cool that we've got
That's
those little spectrums.
Was that when you were a Honda guy?
Yeah, I've always been a Honda guy, actually.
Yeah.
Ever since I worked at another company called Sway Away.
Sure.
So Sway Away and
Sure.
the whole Race Runner
Yeah.
shock package thing.
Sure.
Brian Skipper hired me on
Okay.
to kind of run that.
Uh-huh.
So I was in the infancy of that and learning in the light. I don't know, it was probably 96, 97 when I started working for him, and I
Sure.
was completely invested in off-road. Like that, I went from working at my family's body shop to being an off-road shock guy. And within months, I was an
Wow.
off-road shock guy.
Well, there you go.
So a lot of those connections still follow me through
That's right.
to today.
That's right.
So we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And we all three build cars. We all work
Yeah.
on this stuff. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful. Which I've joked before, it's like jewelry for your
Right.
car. And
They're
when
pre-oiled.
we're building
Yeah.
when we're building a high end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Jeff here.
And without peer. Without peer.
With,
Anybody
and
else
you
better?
know what?
Or pairs.
Without peer, there's nobody else
Correct.
that does
That
what they
is,
do.
it is. So check them out at arp-bolts.com, and they can help you out.
You've used these brakes, have you not?
Yeah.
We're working on some stuff right now.
What
are you doing?
We have a new Halo car we're building right now that we've released some stuff on Instagram. It's a 70 Plymouth Roadrunner called Haraka, and
Where'd that name come from?
it's basically African for speed.
Okay.
From like the hunters and stuff. Like I did a bunch of research and I really liked the name. And so walking around SEMA, 6-7 months ago, the car had been. We got to the point where we wanted to talking with a owner and we're wanting to do a car and it's kind of in its first gestation, and. I was sitting and talking with Tim Foss, and he was kind of busting my nuts because of the really nice Chevelle we had there. I had a bunch of magazines lined up to shoot it. It has Wilwoods on it. And by the way, it's on the cover of the new June issue of Hemmings Muscle Machines. Thank
Nice.
you. Thank you, Terry McGean and Jeff Koch.
Nice.
So anyway, he kind of busts my chops going, when am I getting a car in the book? And I go, well, I got this Roadrunner project that isn't off the ground yet, but
Sure.
I think it's going to be pretty substantial. You want that? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, hey, do you see the brand new Heights IFS and IRS suspension they just released for Mopars? And they advertise with him in the garage media stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, no. So we walked over, and I have done some past stuff that got a lot of good press. That Heights suspensions were in, so I have a good rapport with them. And we talked real quickly, and I looked at it, and it looked like good, stout stuff. It doesn't look thin and spindly. It looks like it's going to be a good suspension for being on the street and working properly. And we decided to work together. And because of that, not because of that, like I said, I've had plenty of their product on our cars, but I know that they have a relationship with Heights, so that it kind of came as a package thing anyway. And there's some new stuff that they've developed that we're trying to see if we can fit, because the car's got an IFS and an IRS, and they actually re-engineered the IRS with us. Their initial one they built to fit a Dodge. And even though most of you Chrysler guys know that the B body, Chrysler and Plymouth, are pretty much the same car, the Plymouth is actually an inch shorter in wheelbase. And what they had that fit their Dodge Charger was an inch off in wheelbase in our Plymouth Roadrunner. So we'll call them their saddles that they had. And remember, this is all new R&D stuff for them. They weren't, saying, hey, we're the bee's knees. We've got this all summed up. We were lucky to catch it then because they hadn't put it on a Plymouth yet. So we kind of redid the saddle things for them, or we've made a set and we're going to be sending them back to them. They probably have already got their own set anyway now, and we also narrowed the A-arms because the Dodge quarter panels come out like a Coke bottle and the Plymouths are
Right.
so I would have had no dish on my wheel because their hub came way out to here.
Yeah, that's a good
so
point.
they were amazing to work with. And again, thanks to Heights for being so open-minded and going, ooh, well, all right, what do we need to change? And they made us a set of arms that are 3 inches narrower on the side. And luckily, the company that does the CV boots and the axles could make that shorter. They had one available
cool.
shorter. So now we're going to have a nice deep rim that we're doing with HRE. And so anyway, we've got to figure out what braking we want to do, and that's what's handy with working with Wilwood. Now I'm spoiled because I've got this guy literally over the hill from me, so he can.
I live in Simi.
Oh, I know, but Well, the business, like me, we want to share where you live. Okay, fine. We'll post up the address later.
Well, that's where that really hot guy that builds those really nice
please
cars,
don't.
right?
Please don't. Please don't.
Yes. He's on a
anyway,
podcast somewhere.
Yeah.
They have people that you can call and go, I've got this situation going on. Here's my rear axle. Here's the flange. Here's my spindle. Here's the diameter of the rim I'm working with. Here's the look I'm looking for. What do you recommend? Because believe it or not, I have a lot of formed opinions and about what I'm building and what it's going to look like. But I throw to him and go, what's going on right now? Do you got a caliper right now you want to promo? Is that going to work on this particular project physically and visually? And I saw at SEMA, this is the first time I saw it, was your new electric e-brake, which is just genius because for me, it cleans up. You don't have those e-brake cables in the back. And
it works really good.
They hold. So he's going to be bringing stuff over. We're going to be making sure packaging works because the IRS has got a whole bunch going on. It's not just a solid axle in the back. Yeah. And so we've got to make sure that works. And then we're picking rotor diameters and different caliper colors because you have 24 colors available. So I'm sure you can find something that fits your project and also fits the imaging that you want to do. And there's multiple levels of braking and sizing and dollar figures. So it's really handy to work with a company that has that lateral flexibility and vertical in dollar figure and different levels of performance. So that lets my stuff look better and work better and perform better. So it's very handy to be able to work with a company that has people on deck that know the product line and can advise. Like I said, I know what I want, but I always turn to them and go, what do you advise on this? And what's going to work well for a relationship between us and Heights and Wilwood? Since we already know some magazines are interested, there's going to be promo, there's going to be publications following along with it, there's going to be video stuff. So we want everybody happy. So I'm looking forward to that too, because it's exciting when there's new stuff that electric e-brake is going to be a problem solver. Right. Not just this car. It's like, well, now I'm used to it. Now we can integrate it into other stuff. So and that's really neat that technology keeps moving along and stuff like that happens. That we can use products.
That electric parking brake has gone over so well.
Yeah. It's a major
that it's
problem.
almost a no-brainer when it comes to a builder like Steve, where he just goes, wait a minute, I don't have to have a cumbersome hand lever or foot brake inside the car.
Right.
It's also a theft deterrent, which I told you about.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, you hide that switch and you can't move that car, and you're not crawling underneath that car to dismount that caliper.
No.
You know what? Tech question.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and the guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a short, small block Chevy head bolt, so that the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
but the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at arp-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick,
you're
is the editor.
Biased.
So
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which is of course our favorite. So
in color and
magazine.
everything.
in color and everything, and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great tech.
Great
Written
tech.
by you
know,
and
not
others
always
that are
written by me, but yeah.
Not always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it
check
up and
them
read
out
it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you.
Go.
Tech question number 4.
tech question on this particular thing, or anybody interested in the e-brake thing. Say we wanted to do that like we're talking about. Can I wire that, say, on the ground side of the relay? Because if I turn it on, I don't want that switch draining the battery all night.
It's not going to drain the battery anyway.
Because it switches and engages, and then it's...
And then it cuts it off. It's got a module box. So you're going to mount this box.
Okay,
that
so
does all
no fear of that.
Okay.
Nothing.
That's
Awesome.
Yeah, there's absolutely no draw.
cool.
So it draws 40 amps.
It just links, it just sucks down.
It draws at 40 amps.
Right.
So like when you wire the car, it's the positive and negative have to go straight to the battery. If you do a ground or you go to a junction box for power, it won't draw enough amps.
Okay.
So that'll be another thing we'll talk about. But it
Yeah,
has to go to the battery.
Because that's interesting, because I haven't determined yet placement of the battery. I'm probably going to put it in the trunk,
Oh,
which
and it comes
will
with,
mean
It's even
that's
easier.
okay.
it comes with
Yeah.
so much
And
cabling.
how big's the well? Then
It's
I
about
got to
that big.
hide the cabling for me on that car.
Oh, no.
So packaging, what the modules, nothing.
Oh, it's small. It's only this big, and it comes with a full wiring loom.
Right.
I already know that your guys are going to end up running where they want it, shortening it up, make
Right.
it really clean.
We'll run grommet, hide it,
Mm-hmm.
run. I have one eye. I didn't see the mic. Okay, back off. So
You have one eye?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Guess which one? Jackass. Yeah, I know. Yeah. We got the whole poke that thing. Yeah. So yeah, we'll because both calipers require a wiring down, right?
Yeah.
Hot and ground.
Yep.
Right.
So when you
I'll
turn the
probably
switch
just-
one way, it's going to send polarity to turn the motor on.
Okay.
And that's 40 amps. And then when you go to turn it off, it's much less. It's like 28.
Right.
It's not as much.
Yeah, so my brain already is like, where am I hiding those wiring? Am I running it across? Well, this isn't a normal solid axle car, so I'm like,
No.
am I going to creep it up an A-arm and then run it to a grommet up into the trunk, or
Where are you going to put the exhaust?
around it?
I had a height system in a Pontiac.
Well,
It's bad.
let
It's
me
a challenge.
let me tell
Do
you.
the cutouts.
I've already done an IRS.
Do the cutouts.
I know what I'm going to do.
I figure as much.
But I've got.
I thought you were in good
I'm
hands.
not going to disclose it yet, but there are plans. The
hidden.
exhaust system on this car is not of the normal ilk whatsoever, and it's going to be extremely cool if it all plays out. Extremely
Comes
cool.
up right in front of the driver.
It does. It empties out right into the car.
Goes in the glove box.
Our
Just keep it closed.
insta-suicide kit. It's terrific. Yes, that is it. It's a
So the
Seat
cool
heater.
thing,
seat heater.
the cool thing about working with you is, Heights came out with one brake setup for this new IRS.
We discussed this, yes.
Well, and that's the part that I like at Wilwood is, I have numerous customers that are like, hey, I'm autocrossing with my car and I got this new IRS or whatever the product is. It
Whatever
could
it
be
is.
another manufacturer.
Sure.
I said, okay, they're using our product. What is it? And then I see it. Well, the brake that I told you about that they're selling with it, it's totally fine for autocross. It's perfect.
Okay.
But it's not going to work for what he wants. It would stop this car fine,
Yeah.
but it's not the aesthetic. That's the whole thing that we have to look at, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the careful balance that obviously you guys are striking here.
Yeah.
We've got a car that's a halo car. It's going to look good. I mean, do we have a 12 puck brake
12
caliper?
12 pucks.
They keep
Wow,
adding.
12
That's a lot of
But I mean, I remember when it went from
I mean,
4
in
and
the front,
6.
it'll be 12 total.
I remember when it was 4 and 6, and then I just didn't know where it went from there. So
And that's a whole other ball of wax because
Yes.
more pistons are better, right?
sure,
negative.
why not? Yeah,
Negative.
no,
Negative.
agreed.
So the
Are
thing
we
that I'm
going back
looking
to a
forward
single
I
piston?
never went further than 4. So there you go.
Well, the thing that I'm looking forward to is coming up with a package, but using some Wilwood components and helping with like the R&D on the West
That's
Coast
great.
here.
That's great.
So, hey, let's use these parts because if you use these parts, then we can send that information over to Heights.
That's
and go, hey, you can sell this brake package too.
Hey, if you use these parts, it'll make
It
this
works for
brake
them.
kit. So that's the thing that I've, over 21 years, like I've really liked that I've gotten to the point where I can do that and say, hey, that's a new project and it's just a complete different application. And
Right.
people go, what would you use? And I go, oh man, we do this over here. We use this over in sprint cars. Let's try it.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, it usually works. A little tweaking here and there.
That's cool. So for his system, you say you're going to use a different one for his car than you would normally run with the Heights system because of the exposure.
What they
what they
offer.
are offering is one form.
Yes.
And we wish to have a different setup for a bunch of different reasons.
Makes
so
sense.
he basically is kit bashed.
Yeah.
He went, you know what, we can use this offset hat,
Got
put
it.
the rotor here,
Sure.
put the caliper here,
Yep.
and then we can run this over here like that. Oh,
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
And the thing is when we verify that, right, when everything's set on and
Sure.
there's clearances and all that, then I and or him can call Heights and go, well, he'll do it. Here's the part numbers. You can now sell it this way, matching front and rear.
And we'll make a
now
part
your
number.
customers have braking options
Yeah.
to choose from.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
we'll make a part
And
number
they never
just
would have
for
known
Heights.
that. Wilwood wouldn't have known. I mean,
Right.
Heights
Right.
wouldn't have known that.
It's
Yeah.
beneficial for everyone.
Oh, sure.
Everybody.
Oh,
it's
heck
a,
yeah.
It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, and it's a
right.
cool thing that the company, in this case, Mike, is proactive
Sure.
into seeking out those opportunities and going, we can come up with something that
Right.
allows that, because not only will that sell potentially more Wilwood product, but it gives the manufacturer of the suspension, Heights, more opportunities to make different customers happy with options. So it really works out really well. And you know, I'll just say it now because I am nowhere near the size of Wilwood, not even remotely close. But I'm a business owner, and so I can appreciate somebody who's an employee somewhere that actually is proactive, goes out and does and creates and looks for opportunities, because that's huge. So send his raise to.
And sometimes
But it's true. You know, I'm joking with you, but I'm
Yeah.
rock serious.
I know, but sometimes
You know?
I have sleepless nights where I go, man, I have this idea, but then I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it.
So we have a new product that's for UTVs, right? And it started off,
Yeah.
I mean, UTVs are becoming a huge marketplace.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right?
Sure.
And it started off with going to King of the Hammers and having my real race car guys who are now getting sponsored by Can-Am and Polaris. Hey, you're a really good racer. We want you to race in this UTV race. So they get these cars and they fix them up a little bit, and then they go out and race them.
Right.
And then they go, wow, it's pretty capable, but the brakes are terrible. Because they're used to real brakes on a real race car.
Right. Sure.
So then I have these racers who I have a relationship with. We're talking like 3-time King of the Hammers winner Shannon Campbell. If you don't know who Shannon Campbell is, he's kind of a big deal.
Okay.
Right?
Don't know.
And he comes up and says, Mike, players give me this car to race, and it's terrible. Everything's great except for the brakes.
It's horrible.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring this up. Well, after 3 years of that, and going back to Wilwood and saying we need to make brakes for these cars.
Right,
These
right.
UTVs are getting popular. At that point, I was not a UTV guy.
Sure.
Not even a UTV. I'm an
Right.
off-road guy, and that's where I came from.
Sure.
But I'm not a UTV guy. So he said, we're going to start doing this UTV thing.
Nice.
And I said, well, we got to do a lot of R&D. We need a car. We need to really.
Right.
This is nothing that we've done before. It's way different.
Right.
Well, I ended up buying a car myself,
Wow.
right? So now, 5 years later, we have the UTV brakes. Now, some people might say, God, 5 years later. But what really happened was we learned a ton
I bet.
by doing R&D. I mean, I could get into it, but I am so.
What was? I mean, I understand you could not say this, but what was wrong with them?
No, we realized that you can't build brakes for these UTVs like you do a car.
Uh-huh.
It's just different
Okay.
because
What are
everybody's.
they? I don't even know what they're using. What are they using?
So they'll use, like, on my car, we have a 30-inch tire.
Okay.
But a lot of guys run 35s,
Okay.
right? And the spindle is about this big,
Okay.
right? So it's
Yeah.
about that tall.
Okay. Sure.
And then the hub is not much offset, and it's
Okay.
kind of spindly,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Well, then you've got an axle that goes through it. So here you are, and you hit a big hole.
Yeah.
Well, the factory caliper moves with everything.
Sure.
Does it?
Yeah, because it's
Interesting.
floating.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
floating
Okay.
caliper. So
Floating caliper,
you've
sure.
got this 35-inch tire or a 30-inch tire, and you hit a hole.
Yeah.
Well, everything kind of goes like this, and then you still have a good brake pedal because caliper moved with it.
Yeah.
Well, what we learned is you fix the rotor just like it is stock, and then you put a fixed mount caliper.
Okay.
So in this case, a 6-piston, right?
Okay.
So you've got this bigger caliper, same square area, so it's still the same amount of volume.
Okay.
But now when that hub moves,
Yeah.
the caliper doesn't move with
So it
it.
stays. Okay.
So it has piston knockback. So it pushes all the fluid back into the master cylinder.
Oh, yeah.
So then you got to pump the pedal. Right? It's like old school road racing before they used full floaters.
Yeah.
You go around a corner and everything moved, and then the driver had to pump the pedal before he went into turn 4, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we learned. And we wouldn't have learned that if we just started making parts and sending
Sure.
them out to people.
Sure.
So it's all of those type of things where, I mean, I was so excited, had the first set of brakes ready. I go out to the desert for a King of the Hammers event, and that night I get the car ready, and we all jump inside of it, and we go for a blast out in the desert, and I completely blow a corner and jump like 40 feet. Like, I mean, it was
You're just
not even
gone.
40 feet. It was probably more than that, but
Yeah.
it felt like 40
You're just-
feet in the air.
You're just gone. Yeah.
Because I didn't have any brakes.
Yeah.
So I parked the car
Yeah.
for the entire event and came back to Wilwood and said, here's what our problem is.
Okay.
And that's kind of the cool thing about Wilwood is we
So
stand
what
back.
was the solution?
We float the rotor. So we want a fixed mount caliper because your pedal feel will always be a lot better than a floating caliper.
Yeah,
With a
right.
floating caliper and you've got pistons on the inboard,
Yeah.
it's got to push and pull that anvil. So that translates to a lot more pedal travel.
I see. Okay.
So with a
Sure.
fixed mount, that's really what we're trying to achieve is you're firming that pedal up, right? But if that rotor moves, that's not the case. It pushes all the fluid back. So what we've done is, and it was through a lot of R&D, we floated the rotor this way. So when that 35-inch tire hits something, the rotor doesn't really move.
Right.
And it's,
Huh.
And it doesn't push the
It's-
fluid back?
no,
Huh.
because we did a lot of R&D on it. We figured out how much tolerance, and it
Okay.
ended up being 35 thousandths,
Okay.
right? Which a lot of people in off-road go,
Yeah.
wow, that's a ton.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you really look at what was going on, we kind of solved an issue, but also by looking at what we do in other places.
I see.
So now we've got these UTV brake systems. We have a brand new website just for UTVs. I mean, that's how
Really?
much we've invested in it.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. And it's crazy because even today, we brought on somebody new who bought 20 car sets of brakes. So that's 40 brake kits for
Wow.
UTVs for one model.
Wow.
That's all he does is Can-Am. So it's kind of cool to see it come all the way through
Wow.
and see us getting
Yeah.
it out the door to people.
Right. Wow.
You know, and we've done a lot of testing with real racers like PJ Jones. You've heard of PJ Jones?
Sure.
You know who his dad is?
Yes. I've heard of him.
You know who PJ's dad
Probably
is, right?
Parnelli.
He's kind of a big deal,
Yeah,
right?
he I think
There's a lot of big deals around
I
here.
think
He's a
got
big
some
deal.
little blue ribbons and different things for
Blue ribbons.
blue
Is he a
ribbons.
baker?
Yeah, he is.
I heard that Strope guy,
Yeah,
he's a big deal, isn't he?
I am
He's
not
a,
a big,
he is a very big deal.
Please don't.
Very
do
big
this
deal.
to
You know
me.
what he's better
I think
at?
my parents
He's a better
watch this.
guitarist.
Really?
He's
He
a
is.
guitarist. With
He
that
is.
ponytail, he must be.
Wow. Now the baking. No baker joke intended.
So
Yeah.
the R&D side of things at Wilwood is, it kind of goes together.
Is this the biggest thing at Wilwood lately? I mean, obviously you've got so many divisions, so many applications. You got is Circle Track brake system evolving?
So one thing about our Circle Track division, so we have a whole division and a whole website that's just Wilwood Racing.
Right.
So we've even marketed that in the last 5 years. So
They hire a lot of web developers.
Yes, they do.
we do. I don't think so.
Well, if you got a website for each one of them, there you go. But please, I'm curious.
Well, we have a staff that work out of Indianapolis that
Really?
are our race guys.
You mentioned that. Yes.
And his name is Dave Brzezowski. He came from IndyCar racing.
Okay.
I mean, he's been a crew chief for an Indianapolis 500. He's
Nice.
kind of the real deal.
Yeah.
And he's been a longtime friend of Wilwood before we even hired him.
Okay.
So with having somebody that's got that amount of expertise in that world, which is like sprint car racing. I mean, sprint car stuff, he knows everybody. Anything open wheel, he knows the person,
Sure.
right? So having specific guys that know those markets, it's always nice because hey, we're using a titanium rotor on this. What pad do you use? Because I'm thinking about using it here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would be an awesome place to try it. Let's do it.
Right.
Right? It's kind of like where we came up with the whole idea of the floating rotors for the UTVs.
Okay.
You know, the owner of the company, Bill Wood, said, hey, we're doing lug drive. Let's try it on this and float that rotor.
Okay.
And honestly, I was the first one. I said, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I know off-road stuff. We're going to get debris stuck in there. It's not going to work.
Right.
And he said, well, the cool thing about it, I'm not going to use the Bill Wood voice today, although I want to.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. I'm gonna hear it.
Actually,
It's gonna happen.
I have to set in for a second because every now and then I remind everybody here at the table that not everyone that's watching knows all the history and the background that we take for
Correct.
granted.
Yeah.
So Wilwood is actually the owner's name, Bill Wood. And he obviously William was involved with racing, like stock car and stuff. Early on, that was something he was involved with and enjoyed, and then created a product line to be in that racing community.
Yeah.
And then it grew from there, which we've already touched on.
I thought it was related to Wilbur Wood, the former pitcher for
It's
the White
not.
Sox.
Oddly enough, it's not.
No, I'm not
Okay.
thinking William Wood
it.
watched any.
That
or played
close,
any.
Wasn't playing any baseball? Okay.
And what it really started as is he was an engineer for Hurst Earhart.
Okay.
There you go.
Big time. That's a big time deal.
And they were using, on the landing gear, he starts looking at what they're
Yeah.
using and he goes, you can put that on a race car.
You bet.
Slowing a plane.
This is a place where we could probably do something. Well, he started kind of
Yeah.
using his own cross marketing.
Right.
He did
and
okay.
next thing you know, he's at Riverside every time there's a race, walking around with a crate that has parts in it, just knocking on everybody's door. Hey, have you
what it
seen this
takes.
stuff? Right?
Reminds me of Bob Florine.
That's
There
exactly
you
what
go.
Bob
Same idea.
Florine did
I
at
didn't mean
ARP.
to digress there. It was a plug, so don't
There was
worry.
there was a
Well-
plug there.
But you're right. I mean, these guys were unafraid to, dare to be stupid, ask somebody a question, show them something, develop something, and come away with actually a win because this guy says, hey, that shouldn't work, but
And I think that
Okay.
that's really trickled down to even present day. We are on so many different applications and markets that sometimes I have to go, wait a minute. Something that we are huge in is SAE. You know what SAE is? So when a college builds like a little off-road car or a little
Yeah.
road race car and they race them against each other,
right.
I would say that well over 60, 70% of all of the colleges in the United States
Use your
use
stuff.
Wilwood parts on those cars.
It's good at investing in future use.
Right,
Yeah.
because
Right?
and they are
They're all-
now familiar with the product
Right.
too.
Exactly.
So if they go off to just be enthusiasts that tinker at home,
Still
they're
works.
familiar with the product.
And even last week, helping one of our young engineers that's going to Cal State Northridge
Okay.
with, hey, we found out that the pedals that we built, we can't use them, so we need to use a Wilwood pedal. Hey, let's go downstairs and get some pedals together
Nice.
for you.
Nice.
Because it's good R&D for us.
You
Because
bet.
if it works for him, we know we can sell that to other colleges when they're building their cars,
Right.
and know it works. So that type of cross marketing,
All works.
super helpful.
All works.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So what's on the potential agenda? Is there the next thing happening? What is the next thing happening? Is there a next thing happening?
I think we're right in the middle of exploiting a lot of our new stuff. Kind of being shut down and just trying to keep up for 2 years, we didn't work on a lot of new projects. And let's just say Sensema is really when we put a big press on a lot of new off-road stuff, the UTV stuff, which,
Right.
by the way, those are not the same. UTV people are not off-road people.
Right.
Some of them cross over, but UTV
What
people
would you describe as off-road people?
off-road are going to be people that build trucks to go in the dirt with 17-inch wheels, buggies that race, Actually, buggies like stuff that I cut my teeth in. I used to race a Class 10 car and score with a team that was out of Sway Away. And what was funny is I was the shock guy, but I always kind of worked on the brakes. But I wasn't the brake guy. I just kind of worked on them.
Sure.
But I learned enough that when I started at Wilwood, I went, I see. I see why we're using all these parts.
Sure.
And now we've got a lot of new parts that a lot of off-road manufacturers that build chassis for different kinds of racing, they're going, oh, we can use that. And I go, yeah, you can use that. Oh, that's an affordable part. Yeah,
Right.
it's affordable.
That's awesome.
How can it be so affordable?
That's awesome.
That's because we make a lot of them.
Yep.
A lot of them.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, it's kind of like ARP making lots of nuts and bolts.
Right.
And people go, man, you know, that's a really nice stainless bolt. And then you get the price and you're actually like, you know, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
You knew
True, right?
everything into manufacturing it. You have no idea. The bolt
So-
should be $30.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Well, you can only go as fast as you can stop. I always felt that was a
Well,
key
that's a
ingredient.
good one.
You know, it's
Well, you got to stop to go faster.
yes, yes.
And if you don't have the confidence,
You're done. Yeah. no
you know, I was
doubt.
on the phone with a customer today that is heavy into short course racing.
Okay.
You know what short course racing is? So off-road racing, but like in a stadium.
Yes.
Like stadium racing, right?
That's what we were talking about with Dennis not so long ago. Same. Yeah, he runs.
The trucks that are
Yep.
off-road racing, but inside. And
Yes.
so a
you
lot
can
of
watch
high
the whole
energy, and a
race.
lot of
Huge.
hullabaloo going on, and
Yes.
they're crazy.
Hullabaloo.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a big
You
word
like
right
that?
there.
You used bees.
What was the
knees, and
car's?
hullabaloo.
What's the car's name again?
Haraka.
Haraka.
See?
Haraka.
It's just like saying Musafa. but
Say that again.
No, I'm not.
Haraka.
Not going to do it.
So
Your boy's picking on me.
you know he's had nothing. He's
No,
had
it's
nothing
Haraka.
but bad luck with brakes. Short course racing. All these guys do
Yeah.
because there's not enough brake.
Right.
Right? They're going
Just
way
don't.
too fast. They can make these things go really fast. The suspension's there.
Right. No.
And-
no cool down, or what's the deal?
Don't you
Well-
think by now, in today's technology, that somebody building the race trucks would go, we need brakes to keep up with it?
Well, the race trucks, yes, but on UTVs, there's not a lot of people doing it yet.
No. So
there-
a question though, UTV wasn't that theoretically made as a recreational, not on the road, off road, out on the farm, out and
That's how it
rolling
started.
around? So isn't it still off roading?
They don't leave it alone.
It's just a different. It's almost like somebody that owns a boat, right? And then people that owned or own boats that buy jet skis back in the day,
Okay,
right? But then the people that just bought jet skis, those
they're
are
not
the same.
boaters.
They're not boaters.
I get it. Okay,
Right.
you know what? That was
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, that was. I got that.
You got that?
I got that.
And
I got
other
that.
people in this room exactly know why I said that.
You bet.
Because I'm a boater and I've owned jet skis, right?
Right.
So when I approach a lot of the UTV customers, you know, I kind of have to go, okay, I see what's in their kitchen. They really don't know about Wilwood. It's brand new to them. They're just like, Wilwood, what is that, right? So that's what I'm excited about is like kind of working on getting into these markets. And the more that we talk to them about it, they go, I never thought about needing brakes. And you go, well, look at how much this is
You'll
why
find
it's
out
better.
when that tree's coming at you
Yeah,
pretty
no
quick.
kidding. No kidding.
You know, and a thankful thing that I bring up a lot of times, especially with our newer sales and marketing people, is be thankful that we have a product that we know works and that you can suggest to a customer, but you don't have to force them. Hey,
Right.
you have to use this.
Sure.
No, it's more of, hey, we've got like these 3 different things that'll work for you, and you decide which one you want. Wait a minute, you're not
Yeah.
like telling me in a corner and about to beat me up that I got to buy this stuff? No, you buy whatever you want.
So what happens if somebody calls your tech line and they start having these discussions and they look at stuff online, or what's the usual process by which somebody looks at what's on the menu and then says, hey, I think I'm going to do this, and then gets guided to this because there's stuff that he didn't watch?
And
What's the situation there?
And that is something that happens on a regular basis, and it comes in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I would say the majority is a phone call.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I was looking at your website. I'm super confused. And let me tell you, our website from even 5 years ago is way easier to navigate. But I can still appreciate that and
Well,
say,
there's so much information.
Right?
And so many kit options that somebody who's got a basic level knowledge would go,
so that's
so
who we
much
want to
going
call
on here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we want them to call and say, hey, here's simple questions. So our sales staff will ask them simple questions. What are you going to do with the car? What size wheel? Who's driving it?
Right.
What kind of driving are
Yeah,
you doing
that's a
with
good
it?
point. Yeah,
Right?
sure.
And then you kind of already narrowed it down. Now the website does that, but you got to look a little close, right?
Yeah.
So once you show them and then you take them to the website, they go, oh, this isn't as tough as I thought. Exactly. So,
Yeah, you just start understanding the breakdown of things.
and,
Right.
and what we'll typically do is say, listen, let's email you all these part numbers so that you have a complete bill of materials of everything you need from Wilwood and even what you might need from someone else.
Right.
You might need a low car cable kit, or you may need a booster from one of our manufacturers that we sell our master cylinders to. We'll give them all that information and say, okay, go buy it where you want to buy it. What do you mean? Because we're still really hardcore, old school sell through distribution. We want to sell through our distributors so that
Go over to
everybody's
Summit,
making that
go
money.
over to Jags, go over to
Go to Heights.
Go to Heights.
Hey, if you called me about Heights stuff, I'm going to send you to Heights to buy it all. Right?
Yeah.
So you're not doing the Amazon kind of thing, huh?
It's funny because people say, hey, I bought this on Amazon. And we're like, well, we didn't sell it to you. So
There you go.
I got this at
Too often.
Walmart.
Yeah.
Well, we don't sell to Walmart.
That's right.
So somebody sold that to them. And,
Third party,
Yeah.
and sorry.
but even today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw out a name. This is the first gentleman that ran the 4-piston race calipers that Bill ever built. And his name is Kenny Sapper.
Oh,
Kenny Sapper
I
was
know
the first
Kenny
one.
Sapper.
Okay. So Kenny's
Speedway.
Engineering out of Selmar.
Engineering.
And Kenny, he's in the Circle Track Hall of Fame now.
Is he? Did he make it?
No, he did. It's Circle Track Hall of Fame. I think it
That would make sense.
Circle Track Hall of Fame. Anyway, it's a
Yeah.
big deal. And
Kenny can just write
Bill
in.
went to Kenny and said, "Hey, put these on your car and go try it." Well, he goes out to Saugus and starts beating everybody up, and that's how it started, right? But Kenny will go to a hot rod show because Kenny's a hot rodder.
Yes, he
right?
is.
I mean, big time. That new
Yeah.
car and having it
it's
all
32.
redone.
He has a really lovely 32
He had
Roadster.
it.
Nice,
He
yeah.
had it entered in the Amber this year and everything.
Nice.
Customer of his just walks in at a Good Guys event and says, "Hey, I want to buy some of your stuff, but I also am interested in brakes." And he goes, "Well, actually, I got the right guy to talk to. He's a guy over at Wilwood, and I'll
Awesome.
give you his number." Well, as of today, I give him a full bill of materials. Say, "This is what you need. You don't need any more than this. 15-inch wheel. It's real simple stuff. You're just going to cruise the car." Now I'm going to go ahead and get with Kenny, and you can buy it from Kenny. And he went, "Wait a minute." So he can sell me the stuff too because I'm already buying stuff from him. I go, that's what this is all about, right? So making those connections in this industry are super important.
That's
sure.
very unique in today's world.
Right.
That's not the way it's working for the most part.
Yeah,
at all.
that one-on-one is really what we still do.
That's good.
If you email us and say, "Hey, I'm interested in a brake kit for my WRX," which
Yeah.
is another car that we sell a ton of brakes for.
I bet.
Right.
We say, "Hey, what are you going to do with it? What size wheel? Here's your options." And I guarantee that sometimes a customer will come back and go, "You gave me 3 different options." Well, yeah, and we told you.
Yeah.
You need to
You
decide
pick-
which one.
yeah, you
You're
pick which one.
observant.
Yeah. Is it usually a decision of cost at that point?
I think it comes down to cost and use.
Yeah.
If I've got an Optima guy, which has become a huge racing. It's
Sure.
not really racing, but
Yeah.
it is racing.
Sure
But
it
you're
is.
taking your street car out and you're
Yeah.
running against your own time.
Man, some
right?
of those guys have gotten really serious.
Oh,
Well-
it's been
Those cars
serious
are
for a
really
long time.
seriously set up.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Some of the cars that we've won championships with at Optima, they've got race car brakes on them.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And we try to still make them look like a pretty street car though.
Right.
Because that's the whole idea behind that
Right.
racing, right? So
That's why you have how many colors of calipers?
24.
There you go.
He and I started
just have
talking
black
about
colors.
colors. We started talking about colors, and if he picks a green, we got 3.
There you go.
I'm not picking a green at this moment, but okay.
But I can
Just
say,
clarify.
here's 3. Now, a lot of people ask us, hey, can't you match my paint? And I say, first off,
Hey, no.
yeah, you don't want to do that.
No.
You don't want to match your paint anymore. But
Yeah.
the reason that we're specific about, say, 3 greens or 3 yellows is we've come up with an in-house process that we can guarantee that it's not going to chip or peel.
Right.
Well, chip maybe, but peel, right?
Yeah.
So the way that, and we do it all in-house.
Sure.
So the way that we're doing it, we can guarantee. So if we get a caliper back and we did it and it's peeling, we'll replace it in a heartbeat.
That's awesome.
You know?
That's awesome.
Oh, I really want that orange over there. These 2 are pretty close.
Yeah.
And you're never
Right.
going to see, the
26 is pretty
caliper's
good.
never going to be up at the
Sure.
car.
Unless you're looking for ice
I like
cream.
the hard Anna. The new hard anodized. That looks really good.
Which is another thing. You haven't been by to see the hard anodizing. That we do that in-house.
You doing that in the house now? Oh.
Yeah, in Southern California.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
Kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome.
And that really
And I
came-
like that look. I
It's-
like that sheen. I like the color of it.
that is a
But
process.
that's what we have on the Chevelle, right? The hard
that's
Anna.
exactly
Yeah,
what we
that
did.
looks great.
Nice.
That is a process that Bill Wood just got fed up of having to send a product that we have all this work into, like a caliper, out to an outside vendor, and the price goes up and the lead time goes up, but the quality was going down.
Yeah.
And hard ano, the color can shift and change depending on how long
A
they
lot.
did. So if you've got a process, you can guarantee it's going to look the same on every batch.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what our staff has
Awesome.
gotten to the point of doing, and it's huge. And what's crazy is if you buy a street caliper from us, it has the racing hard anodized first, then we powder coat over it.
Oh, that's cool.
So a lot of people are like, wait a minute. And we're like, we didn't add any cost to any of that.
Right.
In fact,
Right.
it's paid for itself
Wow.
quite a bit of times now in the last 5 years.
Well, I hate to pump the brakes, but
Oh,
we've reached
boy.
the end.
That was
puns.
good.
Did you
The
enjoy it?
puns.
Are you a dad?
Yes.
Because that was a dad joke.
It was. A
I
bad-
use
was
it
a
all the
bad-
time.
was
I
a
like
bad
that one.
Yeah, it was a bad one.
Yeah, being
Sorry.
a brake guy.
Yeah, yeah. Granddad, grandfather, recently. Yeah,
Then
hard to believe
times
it.
2.
That's it.
Wow,
That's right.
you're
He's
old.
not. He's not listening to me.
No?
He's 1.
Oh.
So there you go. Anyway, but
Cut him some slack.
thank you, Mike. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
thanks
This
for
was
Mike.
very informative, really informational, and
wait.
fun. Yes.
Where do people go? Is it willwood.com?
one L.
Willwoodbrakes.com? That's right. It is 1L.
WILWOOD.
Yep.
Very good.
So
Yeah, if
to
you
learn
go to our
about all
website,
this-
you can always get a hold of us. And I thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, no
It
sweat,
was
man.
really,
It-
really informative.
I like the
Enjoyed it.
informative
Good.
stuff.
I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. Anyway, well, great. And thus concludes another episode of Car Guy Confessions without Jeff Smith. Jeff, I guarantee you we'll be back someday.
Yeah, when
That's
he's-
right. Anyway, so we'll
Is
see.
is
He's fine.
He's
is
in
Jeff?
Iowa.
No, I know he's in Iowa. Is he
Yeah.
ever going to come and visit?
Yes.
Yes.
He'll
Good.
probably be here
Yeah.
for the next.
All right, Jeff.
The next-
Looking
for the
forward to
next-
seeing you.
for the
Good
next show.
Lord.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thanks to ARP Bolts.
That's right.
ARP-bolts.com. Thank you again. Thanks to everybody. Bob Florine on down. We like it very much.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Take care.
See ya.